Have you ever wondered what Java's autoboxing and unboxing is, and if it's the same thing or different from C Sharp's boxing and unboxing? If you have, then watch this video. If you have not, watch this video. In Java, autoboxing is the automatic conversion that the Java compiler makes between primitive types and their corresponding object wrapper classes. Primitive types are the int, double with a small d, float with a small f, etc, and their corresponding object wrapper classes is the integer class, double class with a big D, float class with big F. So the Java compiler, as an example, can convert the int primitive type into the integer class. So as an example, we have a list of integer we have defined as li, and we're looping about 50 times to add values, primitive integer values to it. So as you can see, the add method is taking the integer values, that's the int values, the primitive int type. So here the Java compiler says, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do anything, I'm not going to give you any compiler errors, I am going to convert it for you. So internally the compiler translates the code into this. The code that is translated is much bigger than the code we actually wrote. So that's what autoboxing is about in Java. When does the Java compiler do this? The first case is when passed as a parameter to a method that expects the corresponding object wrapper class. As an example, the add method here actually expects an integer object, but we're passing the primitive int to it. So Java does the autoboxing here for us. The second time this happens is when assigned to a variable of the corresponding object wrapper class. As in when you declare a variable as an integer class, but you're assigning a primitive type to it, like in this place. In C Sharp, boxing is an implicit conversion of a value type to the type object or to any interface implemented by that value type. As an example, we have an int variable called I. We have assigned 1, 2, 3 to it. Then we have another variable called O, which is an object. Here you can see that we assign I to the O object. So this statement implicitly applies the boxing operation on the variable I. So this is what boxing is about. It copies the value of I into object O, which is stored on the heap. Similarly, both of them are converted to object, but in Java this is when you convert from the value type to the object wrapper class, while in C Sharp it's when you convert a value type to the object itself, that's to the object type itself. So what's the difference between autoboxing Java and boxing C Sharp? I mean, they are similar, but they are kind of different. So in Java, you have int primitive type, you have integer class. They are two different things. But in C Sharp, you have int as a value type and the object as a base class. So int is being converted to an integer class, which is the autoboxing. Then integer class being converted back to an int, which is the unboxing. While in C Sharp, the int is converted to an object, which is the boxing, and objects being converted back to an int, which is the unboxing. You'll be like, why do we now have to have int and integer in Java? Since why not just use the integer class straight up? So the reason I believe Java does that is performance. Sometimes programmers don't have a need to use all the method or members of the integer class. You just want to declare an int variable and store value. So that one has a better performance than having an integer class which is being stored, which is like a reference type that is being stored on a heap. I hope we've had a better understanding of the difference and similarities between Java's autoboxing and C Sharp's boxing. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and give a thumbs up to this video. Thank you.